Okay. Well, many thanks for the invite to come and speak at Synchrony. I think we're the UK representation, myself and Emir, so thanks for having us. So I've got about 20 minutes to talk, I think. So I work in the UK as a consultant paediatrician in neurodevelopment, and I'm a director of a research centre called the Synapse Centre, which was founded on the back of Synchrony 2019. And I also am a paediatrician working in Cognition Health, which is something I'll talk about. So I also come here as a parent. So this is my 8-year-old son Fred, who has a diagnosis of profound autism. And many of the work I do, I'm inspired by him to push boundaries in autism research, especially within the UK. And Fred has a number of medical comorbidities, which we discussed already upstairs in the epilepsy roundtable, which we seek to try and understand and better define and ultimately treat. And I think that is the emphasis here. It's the translation into therapies for children like my son and other children and families who are in a similar position. So a bit about the Synapse Centre, which I founded post-Synchrony in 2019. Backed with a bit of grant funding from the NHR, we now have collaborations locally with a number of academic institutions where I work within the NHS, which is really pushing on some of the research we're doing. So within Baby Lab at University of Essex and within the University of Cambridge, and more recently with Quadrum, which is probably the main microbiome centre within the UK. And this is all looking at changing the conversation regarding autism and autism research and the landscape within the UK and more globally. And over the last few years, we've made a lot of connections more with the national landscape within the UK, which is the British Academy of Childhood Disability, with a real focus on medical comorbidities within ASD and moving away, seeing autism more as an underlying medical, biological condition alongside the behavioural and developmental traits. So as a centre, we're focusing on a number of the comorbidities we've discussed already at the conference, particularly gastrointestinal and immune challenges, and looking at innate immune activation. Within the centre itself, we now have an established research group, an ethics board, with a main emphasis to drive translational research, alongside a really active patient and public involvement group, and getting the experiences from local families and young people on the autistic spectrum. So, giving an example of some of the projects we've started in the last year, I'm going to try and give you an example of a behavioural project, a more wider registry project, and then a more microbiome associated project. So the first is called Sprites, which is a Synapse preschool early intervention project, which is looking at working with children under the age of 5, promoting early intervention from an OT and speech and language therapy perspective in preschool settings. So this is a fully funded project now for 3 years, which is looking to do outreach into preschools, focusing on children especially with developmental delay and body awareness and sensory issues, and looking to map the improvements with more personal intervention alongside our registry, which I'll talk about in a minute. So these are our 2 new recruits, Alex and Andrea, who are both very experienced allied professionals. This is alongside a registry which we are developing. Again, this is fully funded now, and it is capturing not only diagnostic data and the number of children with ASD we see locally, but the comorbidities associated with autism, particularly around health, so GI problems, seizures, sensory issues, and sleep, alongside learning level, in which what is a more broader collaboration with schools, and acting importantly as a framework for future trials. So this registry spine is looking to provide researchers such as yourselves with an opportunity to come and have populations of certain children with different medical comorbidities to be able to access, and alongside longitudinal mapping of what these kids' learning and development and health needs. So one of the more recent microbiome investigations we're looking at in collaboration with Quadrum is looking at, it's called Families, which is looking at microbiota in autistic children between the age of 4 and 10, alongside paired metabolomic data and an age-mapped sibling, and it's a small-scale trial at the moment with a hope to then make it more broader, a larger trial with a future looking towards treatment in terms from microbiota transfer, which Quadrum is already doing in other areas of health, particularly in ME, chronic fatigue, and in C. diff. So this is an institute which is more set up for adults at the moment, but in many areas, as we know, the overlap between autism and chronic fatigue and inflammatory bowel disease are well known. So this is a really exciting new partnership we have with Quadrum, which is more longer scale. So looking over in the next 5 years, it's looking to really push collaborations with them. But there are many challenges, and certainly in the UK within the NHS is funding limitation from the NHR, a lot of time constraints, and also a different perspective on research of medical comorbidities within autism, which I don't think within the US, obviously that exists, but particularly within the UK, and seeing autism not from a biological standpoint and the medical challenges that a number of our children and adults face. And the reality is we're many years behind where we should be, as we all know. And I'm with Emir today, who's recently been at CTAD, which is more focused on Alzheimer's research, which is years ahead of where the autism field should be, in terms of the investigations that are being done, but also the translational therapy. So that's where the next part of my talk comes onto, which is more the collaboration with recognition. So I met Dr. McSweeney a couple of years ago now, who's a neuroradiologist by training, and has set up recognition 10 years ago now, predominantly looking initially at neurodegeneration in terms of the Alzheimer's field, and establishing clinics, both in terms of clinical, from a clinical standpoint, but also from a research standpoint, which has really been quite groundbreaking within the UK in bringing all the research and science to the population of patients, which is one of the main issues we also have within the autism field. So now there are about 7 sites in the UK, and it's now starting to be established within the US. So Recognition now have 3 sites in Houston, Chicago, and Washington. Alongside a multidisciplinary clinic, which is also focusing now within the autism field, particularly looking at medical comorbidities and management of these challenges that children face. So, reflecting on some of the trials within Alzheimer's, Recognition has consistently been a market leader in trial recruitment within Alzheimer's. And these are a number of trials that have been ongoing in the last few years within SI, UCB, Alzion, and Eli Lilly. And part of the main challenge within clinical trials is doing them well, doing them efficiently, and actually getting enough numbers through. And certainly within the UK, through the NHS, that is increasingly hard due to the time constraints for clinicians. So having a company like Recognition has been invaluable in bringing numbers of participants through clinical trials. And of course looking at the overlap with autism and Alzheimer's and other areas of medicine, certainly through the innate immune system, and I think that's been raised time and again so far, especially at the round table on Friday, and looking at many of the kids that we see have obvious difficulties with innate immune activation and subsequent medical sequelae from this. So it's looking at pre-existing research that is going on in similar fields, and looking at where the autism field might want to catch up. Also looking at other areas of autism research and trials. Recognition was the global leader in recruitment for the bumetanide trial, which was done through Servier. And comparing Recognition to other NHS providers, the numbers of children that got into that trial were incredible, and done in a very efficient and timely manner. And I suppose rationale for collaboration with Recognition in both the UK and the USA are the fact that it's certainly within the UK we have a large autism population in children. Recognition now a multi-centre clinical trials experience and infrastructure, and has clinical experts in all areas of research discipline, and is very sensitive to the needs and understanding neurodiverse children, and is in what is a very well supported unit and team. And I would say that the appetite is to do that within the US as well, and to really bring the academic research that's being done and focusing minds and bringing it into actual clinical practice. So the opportunities are obvious in terms of, as I mentioned before, in terms of Alzheimer's. Recognition have a number of trial experience, over 100 trials from phase 1B to 3 in Alzheimer's, MS, and Parkinson's, and increasingly want to move into the autism space. And we are very keen to collaborate with academic partners and within certain areas of technology and early intervention through early access programs. So this is a keynote, and I'm going to finish here. 39.5 years. So this is the life expectancy for an individual with autism and severe learning impairment. So this will be the life expectancy currently for my son Fred. And 39.5 is younger than my age. And as a parent, that's really hard to stomach. And I just would implore you all, which is why you're here, to really push forward boundaries in autism research, because this is the reality. And not only the fact that the premature morbidity, but it's the quality of life that these young people and individuals have in the interim. And why this area of medicine is so important. So I think that's my time up, so I will leave it there.